Renegade 1 was a black-pilled philosopher much like Emperor Dion. He was a young black man of athletic build much like myself. So much of myself I saw in Renegade. Through no fault of his own, found himself facing the prospect of a life of no romantic prospects. It is truly a difficult position to find oneself in. The very embodiment of bare truth that there are no personal solutions to systemic issues. Black men especially have it bad, as our situation is too unique to be understood by most. Renegade 1 started out embracing the red pill, and over time his tone shifted darker and darker. In the early years of his content, he promoted self-improvement through acquiring money and pushing for status. The message he promoted was generally positive and inspiring. He clearly had hope and wanted to pass that hope on to others. My own journey was exactly the same. I actually skipped red pill talking points and went straight to the MGTOW community. Still, I did cross paths with Renegade. I used to watch his content, and I definitely had interest in his words. Renegade never disclosed much about his personal life. Not much is known about his financial or family situation. But it is clear that Renegade began to see the state of the world was much darker than he originally believed. He transitioned from red pill to black pill.
Indeed, for many of us, we struggle mightily with education, career, money, and our romantic prospects. Life is undeniably brutal in our times.
And Renegade started to shift and change his philosophy as time passed. He started off encouraging self-improvement, but then he started to preach cutting off any and all efforts to do anything. This happened gradually, but by the end of his life, Renegade was fully against any contact with women, sexuality, or engagement with society in its entirety. This is of course a stance that I heavily agree with. The basis of the monastic philosophy is to break away from society after all. Tragically, Renegade 1 eventually ended his own life. Many were saddened at this turn of events. I was especially mourning of this loss, because I had wanted to meet Renegade 1 someday, to see if he might join the monastic order. And here is the part of the video where I boldly proclaim I could have prevented Renegade 1's fate. The evidence speaks clearly on this. What Renegade 1 was trying to accomplish in his life, guiding the lost souls of the black pill community, and encouraging a brotherhood of like-minded men to form. Renegade had tried this when he met up with Savvy Guy and Batman Beyond, two other prominent black YouTubers who were also known creators in the black pill. What I believe happened was, Renegade lost hope, realizing uniting this community might be impossible. I would like to reference Javal the Doomer, who also made a video explaining about Renegade 1 and his philosophy. Javal pointed out a very astute observation of what the black pill community even is. The black pill community largely exists like as a pit that men have fallen into. The pit is a representation of all the various issues that men are face. Chief among those, the inability to attract females. If these men were not faced with these issues, they would not be in the black pill. Men of the black pill in truth are prisoners, vultures, ripping and tearing at and fighting each other over whatever scraps fall their way. They hate each other. This community exists only as a perpetual purgatory. But the black pill is exactly the precursor to my monastic philosophy. I realized long ago that uniting the black pill community was a futile effort. What I want is a very specific kind of man, the kind who may not exist in the black pill community. One must leave this community and build his masculine drive from the beginning. And with that drive, one has to put their own lives back together. The truth is, most of the world has been made subservient to a system in every area of life. The system is designed to rob you of all that you are or ever could be. Renegade 1 will live on through his scattered videos, which still exist on the internet. His message touched many, including me. I cannot stress enough how much potential died with Renegade 1. He was so much more than anything the black pill community deserved. Sincerely, Emperor Dion. And that concludes my sermon.
Welcome YouTube, this is Emperor Dion. I've been meaning to make a video about Renegade 1 for a long time now. Of course I knew who he was. I used to watch him back when he was in his prime of making videos, but it's been a couple years now since he self-annihilated, and there's definitely some things that come to mind that I could say about him now that I might not have would have said about him before. So now that some time has passed since Renegade 1 has... Well, for those of you who somehow don't know who Renegade 1 is, he used to be a BP content creator. He started off in the red pill like a lot of guys. Then he eventually became more black pilled in his understanding of things. And eventually he reached such a point, such a philosophical point, to where he decided this world was no longer for him, and he took himself out. So, you know, Renegade 1 particularly, and my perception of it, is a very tragic one, because he, of all people, there's a very real chance that me and Renegade 1 could have crossed paths. A very real chance. And I'm talking like in real life type of shit. He lives in, what, Atlanta? I'm pretty sure he lived in Atlanta, Georgia. That's pretty much my stomping ground. I don't live in Atlanta. I'm not from Atlanta, but I've been there enough times, and I can go there pretty easily, to the point where it's pretty likely that had he not self-annihilated when he did, that I probably would have reached out to him, and I probably would have met up with him, because I had enough of an understanding about Renegade 1 through watching his content to where I could tell he was right on the cusp of the Goldpill monastic understanding of things. So, and you know, he kind of got onto this before I did even. Renegade 1, while he didn't call it the monastic philosophy, he did very much believe in it. He was trying to get people in the BP space to come together. He did this first by meeting up with Savvy Guy and Batman Beyond. And you know, these two guys in particular, they're not the guys that I think are really worthy people of being part of the monastic order. I don't think so. I mean, Batman Beyond, I do respect what he has to say, but he isn't really about that type of shit. And Savvy Guy obviously isn't going to be capable of that. So, you know, Renegade met up with those guys, though, trying to form a little bit of a camaraderie, trying to get the ball rolling on BPers coming together and this and that. That's what he truly wanted. That's what he truly believed, because he came to that area, that section of the BP where basically you can't relate to anybody in society. You can't enjoy the experiences you used to enjoy, because you see right through everything, like a dagger cutting right through the fluff and the bullshit. You just see too much. You understand too much to enjoy things the same way that you previously would have. So it takes a very particular type of man that you have to be around at that stage, which is, you know, that's why I came up with the monastic philosophy. But that's also, like I said, he came to this conclusion maybe even before I did, even. Renegade 1, he's been around for a while. But, he's a really tragic one, though. He's a really tragic one, because there's a lot of what could have been, with me in particular. Like I say, he kind of strikes close to the heart for me in particular. Because, like I said, he's definitely someone I would have arranged to have met up with at some point, for sure. And there's just no way to know that he was going to ever make the decision that he ultimately made. He didn't speak much about himself in his content. Most people probably didn't know much about his personal life. I mean, from what I've seen of him, and trust me, I've watched a lot of his content, I saw no indication of what his personal life was like. I mean, I assume maybe he had a similar deal in the real world to I did. Of course, maybe he didn't have as much money as I do, but pretty sure he had a similar situation going on to me. Renegade number 1's very, very extremely similar to me, in fact. Even a physical appearance, I actually resemble. Like, Renegade 1 and myself actually resemble each other a good bit. He had an afro back then before he passed away. I used to also have a big afro like that too. You know, I'm a lean, kind of muscular, but not too big black dude. I mean, maybe facially we don't resemble each other that much, but definitely probably height wise and body type wise, and you know, we would have had a lot in common just off of this fact alone, just off the fact of our physical appearance being very similar to each other. And I must say, out of all the people in the BP community, Renegade 1 was one of the few that I wanted to meet up with the most. The most. Because I saw the most potential with him. I saw the most potential in Renegade for going and becoming monastic. I do believe, had I met up with Renegade 1 and established that relationship with him in the real world, that he'd probably still be with us today. I probably could have talked him out of what he ultimately decided to do. I probably could have gave him a renewed sense of purpose on what he tried to get the ball rolling on as far as getting BPers to unite more. I could have probably made him understand that BPers not necessarily going to come together like that, but we can still find a couple people here and there who will. And then that would be something we could work on from there. I think I definitely, out of all the people in this community, probably could have saved his life or had the strongest odds of saving his life. And we could have got Renegade 1 into something. Because here's another thing too. You know, if Renegade 1 has still been with us today, I do feel like people would have been a lot more willing to listen to him than people are willing to listen to me. Because I'm a hard ass. I don't pull any punches about saying what's on my mind, offending people, upsetting people. And if I think it's the truth, and the truth often doesn't conform with your feelings, if I think it's true, it's gonna get utilized, it's gonna get said, it's gonna get incorporated in what I'm doing. That's just how I operate. And when you operate like that, and again, also with the voice too, I don't have the most stereotypically black sounding voice. Neither did he, but maybe he's a bit more relatable in the sense that he was I'm kind of a weirdo. Let's just keep it real there. I'm kind of a weirdo. I'll keep it real with you. People aren't as willing to listen to me as they would be willing to listen to Renegade 1. Definitely not. But I do believe I could have influenced Renegade 1 to where he'd still be among us making content. And me and him could have collaborated. I could have pulled him possibly into my current monastic order type of deal. And we could have had ourselves another member. A very worthy member. And like I said, it's really tragic because out of all the people in this space, I do believe Renegade 1, I mean, I can't really think of anybody else that I consider for joining the monastic order other than him. But Renegade 1's gone. And that sucks. That really, really sucks because I definitely saw within him the potential and the capability. Like, not even of the viewers of mine, the subscribers of mine, most of them that come on my channel even, like, not even amongst most of them do I see that kind of potential, you know. I don't see it. But Renegade 1 just had it. And it's really tragic that he has gone the way he's gone. But rest in peace to Renegade 1. I meant to make a video about him a lot sooner, but I kind of got reminded of him by Chaval's video about it. And Chaval made an excellent video about it. So I don't need to reiterate anything that he said in his video. But I just wanted to put this video out to say that, you know, I really regret that I did not get the opportunity to have met him while he was still here. Because had he still been around, you know, I think around the time he died I was still kind of more or less building myself up and coming up with my plan for what exactly I was going to do. Or the plan back then was a lot different for what I'm doing now, you know. So there wasn't really as much opportunity to reach out. But definitely now, if Renegade 1 was still around right now, for sure I would have reached out for sure. You know, and I definitely would have been willing to meet up with him, as I do with anybody that I find worthy of ascending to the monastic philosophy. So, I guess that's all I got to say about Renegade 1. Now he remains as a, you know, his body may be gone, but his soul marches on within the, well, let's keep it real, guys. The BP community is a trash fire. This is not a good place. This is like purgatory. It's like a prison. Prison is not a good place. There's a lot of bad people in prison. Like prison, there's a lot of bad people in the BP community. So I don't really want to say that his soul lives on in this community. I guess you can say that, but that's not really the positive thing. I think the more positive thing to say is that his soul marches on within the hearts and minds of definitely myself and definitely people who may not be so engrossed in this community, but they got to see his content and it resonated with them and they've been able to make use of it in positive ways. Definitely within the hearts and minds of those people, his soul lives on. And as long as that is true, Renegade 1 has impacted so many in a positive way, which is something that a lot of people cannot say about their lives at the end of their life, you know. So with that being said, this has been Emperor Dion the Lion saying my piece about Renegade 1. And please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.